What's happening? Happy draft day to you and yours. Thanks for joining us as always, the day that we've been waiting for. The non-stop draft talk about the Patriots and what they will do, what they won't do, will they trade, what in the world is happening. All of that ends tonight. 8 o'clock, draft begins, sort of, kind of. Roger Goodell will likely take 10, 15 minutes. He will blabber. They'll have some of the draft picks come up on the stage, all of that kind of stuff. And then they'll have a little message for the fans, and then they'll get into the draft. But at about 8:30 or so, the Patriots will be on the clock, and they will have the decision to make. Maybe they've already made that decision. Maybe it's clear to them what they're going to do. I'll get to that in a minute. We'll also get to the challenge of drafting a quarterback at 3. But here's the latest on the Patriots' plans. Tom Curran, just a little while ago, posted the following: expect the Patriots to take Drake May at number 3 tonight unless someone, Vikings or Giants, makes them an offer they just can't refuse. So again, Tom Curran, about 15 minutes ago, tweets out that the Patriots expect them to take May at 3 unless the Vikings or the Giants get bananas. That's as direct and clear as you can get. And as we've said before, Curran's been really plugged in with the Patriots over the past several months especially. You go back to his report, the Patriots were looking to move on from Belichick after that Colts game, and many other examples of what he's done over the past few months. He has been incredibly accurate with the vast majority of what he has said. And here we are this morning, Tom Curran telling us, if your expectation is that Drake May will get picked 3rd tonight by the Patriots, you have the right expectation, unless a team gets dumb like the Vikings or the Giants. That tells us there is no wiggle room on this pick. If it's J.J. McCarthy or May, Curran is telling us May will be the pick. May is going to be the pick unless somebody knocks Elliott Wolf over with an offer. Good. If it's May versus McCarthy, every single day of the week, I would draft Drake May. We've talked about ceilings. Drake May has the higher ceiling than McCarthy. There's no doubt about that. And if you're looking to swing big on number 3, then the swing is Drake May. And yes, there's risk. I get it. And I understand that some people are concerned by what May will look like in the first couple of years. I understand there are issues with Drake May. But as I've said through this entire process, there are issues with every single one of these quarterbacks. There are issues with the vast, vast, vast majority of all of these prospects that are going to get picked from tonight through Saturday evening. You assume some risk. You assume some risk whenever you draft somebody, especially in the top 3, especially when we talk about quarterbacks. The inexact science. Quarterbacks are very difficult to peg. So understanding that risk, understanding the unknown and unpredictable, Drake May is the bigger swing. And if you're swinging at 3, I think you swing big. May, to me, is the pick over McCarthy. Been consistent on that from the very beginning of all of this. And again, Tom Curran's tweet is just the latest example of the Patriots sending a message to the rest of the league. Hey, look, if you want to try to trade with us, you are either going to step up or don't bother. If you can't step up and give us this kind of Godfather offer that we're looking for, something that is borderline outrageous, if you can't step up with an offer like that, don't even pick up the phone tonight. We are not interested. Drake May is our guy. So again, Tom Curran says if the Patriots do not trade, if they don't get offered something big, Drake May is their guy. More on that. Chad Graff, Diana Rossini, they wrote about Drake May this morning. What has become clearer in recent days is how high the Patriots are on May, whom they view as a close to ideal fit for the offense they want to run. This is something that we've discussed in prior podcasts. When you look at scheme fit, which one of these quarterbacks fit best? To me, the guys that are going to be there, it's May. It's May. Why? Well, number one, May, he can throw on the move. He's comfortable throwing on the move. And Alex Van Pelt's offense is going to have a lot of bootleg action, a lot of play action into the bootleg, throwing on the run. We went back, back to Drake May's pro day. And I mentioned at the time, A lot of the stuff that May was doing during his pro day, he didn't necessarily do a lot of that at UNC. And he was trying to show teams like the Patriots, hey, I can throw on the move off the bootleg. I can turn my back to the defensive line and I'll be okay. So May has that ability of throwing on the move, which is important when you talk about the AVP / Kevin Stefanski offense. Another thing that May does that is pivotal to this offense is he can attack the middle of the field. Jaden Daniels is hesitant to throw into the middle of the field sometimes. J.J. McCarthy, little hesitant, plays really, really safe at times. Drake May will rip it into the middle of the field. He's not afraid. He's not afraid to rip it down the seam. And that is another staple of the AVP offense, of the West Coast offense. You have to be comfortable throwing into the middle of the field. You have to be comfortable in trying to layer throws down to the middle of the field and down the seam. That's what you have to be willing to do. And May has shown that willingness, and he's shown the capability. Another thing that May has is the arm. And when you talk about AVP's offense, you talk about early downs attacking vertically. You'll see a lot on first and second down, attacking the defense vertically, trying to stretch them out, testing them deep. In May, with the combination of his ability to throw down the seam, throw down the middle of the field, being able to throw the football while he's on the move, and his elite arm strength, it might not be elite at the very tippity top of the NFL, but it's damn near close. You combine all of those elements and you have somebody who, if he works out, and we always got to say that, if he works out, if he develops, he is a great fit for Van Pelt in this offense. A great scheme fit. He has enough athleticism to move around, to get out of that pocket. Back to Graff and Rossini on the athletic column here. By the way, give us a like and subscribe. Don't forget, more eyeballs when you give us those thumbs up. And subscriptions, trying to hit 3,500. That's the next goal. So don't forget to like and subscribe, rate and review Spotify, Apple Pods. Back to Graff and Rossini. Gerard Mayo, meanwhile, likes Drake May's toughness. We'll talk about May's toughness a little bit later. Stick a pin in that. For Elliot Wolf, they write, who values athletes with good height, weight, speed compositions, May embodies what a modern quarterback should look and play like. May looks like the quarterback off the conveyor belt. He looks like the prototype. He is your prototypical 6'3", 6'4", 230, strong-armed quarterback. If you were trying to build a quarterback from scratch, the raw ability of May and, just how he looks in his frame, he is the prototype. The ability to throw off platform in 2024 is huge if you're a quarterback. It's one of my concerns about Michael Penix. Penix is not very good off platform. So when you look at May, what Graff and Rossini is telling us is that he fits the offense for Alex Van Pelt. He fits Gerard Mayo's toughness category. We've heard that the Patriots love May's ability to lead a team, which is another important thing they've talked about. He's good for the quote-unquote culture. And for Elliot Wolf, he checks the height, weight, speed boxes at that position. So you start to look down the list, and it's check, check, check. Back to the Athletic. If May's available, Patriots probably hang up on Minnesota and make May the pick at number 3. They've made it clear to the Vikings that it would take some wild offer to get them off their spot at number 3 because of how badly they want a quarterback and how much they like May. So Tom Curran, Chad Graff, Diana Rossini, they're all in agreement here. Drake May is going to be at the pick at 3 if he's there at 3. Or Minnesota / the Giants have to do something unbelievable trade-wise to win Elliot Wolf over. And look, after reading what Curran tweeted and reading The Athletic this morning, we went through the idea of the bag yesterday from Minnesota. From reading what we're reading this morning, it's likely more than what I had on the table yesterday, the offer that I proposed, which was 11, 23, Christian Darrisaw in next year's third-round pick. Certainly sounds like the Patriots, that might not even move them. They might need more than that to move this pick. All right, we have a lot more. Trust me, a lot more to get into. It is draft day. I'm excited. You're excited. Don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, and review. What happens if May is taken second by the Commanders? We'll get to that in a minute. First, Rob D jumps in with a super chat. Thanks, Rob. Of course, it's a busy day. It's a busy chat. So if you want to jump to the front of the line with your question or your comment, you can do that by sending a super chat. Drake May or trade down for left tackle and Penix if he's gone. So that's what Rob D wants. You can throw in what you want. Later on, I'll give you my top 3 options for tonight. But Rob D says Drake May or you trade down and you take that left tackle. Interestingly enough, there's been some talk about Joe Alt kind of falling down the board. I don't see it. I think Alt is going to go in the top 7, but there are some mock drafts, and take them for what they're worth. They're mock drafts. I only did one of those. Might do another one tonight. Probably not. But there are some mock drafts showing that Alt might fall beyond 7, 8, 9, which to me, I think is crazy. He's a franchise left tackle. He's a cornerstone guy. He's a monster with enough athleticism at his size. Yes, I'm a Notre Dame fan, but I'm telling you, Joe Alt is just unreal. And he has all of the ability to be that guy. If he hits his potential, we're talking Hall of Fame quality left tackle. Thanks for the super chat, Rob D. It is much appreciated. So what happens if Drake May is taken by Washington? Back to the Athletic. We've mentioned the full Monty. We brought this up 3-4 weeks ago. I'm hearing a lot more about the full Monty over the last week. We were ahead on this. Nick Cattle's show, we talked about the full Monty, the idea of the Patriots trading back up, the fact that Arizona had the 3rd pick in last year's draft. That's what they did. You have the 3rd pick in this year's draft. That's what you could do. Here's what the Athletic writes about the full Monty. If Drake May goes number 2, the Raiders may get aggressive in trying to move up for Jaden Daniels. That could result in a bidding war between the Raiders and Vikings that leads to an offer the Patriots feel they can't turn down. I don't know how you feel about it, but I feel if you move down to 13, that is a precipitous drop. And I know it's only 2 spots, but when we look at this draft, we talk about the top 9 or 10 guys being offensive, right? And if you want a true blue chip prospect offensively, the best chance you have is sticking into the top 10/11. Because 1 or 2 defensive guys might go. Murphy might go. Turner might go. A couple of those guys might go in the top 10, which obviously would force other players offensively to slide down the board a couple of spots. If you drop down to 13, number 1, you might miss out on one of those guys that you want if you stay at 13 instead of staying at 11. Also, if you're moving back up from 13 instead of 11, you're probably giving up a little bit more. So 13 to me, I would not be interested in dropping all the way back to 13. And I don't really know what the Raiders would have to offer you that would make me sit back and go, oh man, I've got to do that kind of deal. Devontae Adams, we talked about it yesterday. You know, he's 31 years old. I think he wants to win, and he wants to win soon. I don't know if that would make a hell of a lot of sense. But when you look at Adams, obviously great player. Obviously a great player. But I'm not sure if it makes a ton of sense given the current situation here with the Patriots. Back to the Athletic. But the Patriots are adamant that their number 1 goal is to come out of the first round with one of the top 3 remaining quarterbacks, May, Daniels, or McCarthy. So if the unlikely scenario unfolded in which Daniels dropped and the Patriots traded back, the plan would then be to try to trade back up to pick McCarthy. So no mention of Michael Penix. No mention of Michael Penix by the Athletic. According to Graff and Rossini, this is a 3-horse race for the Patriots. Daniels, May, McCarthy. Graff, Rossini agree with Tom Curran, who tweeted out just about 45 minutes ago that we should expect the Patriots to draft Drake May at 3 unless they're absolutely knocked over. So if you start to really read all of these things, it would seem to me, and it should seem to all of you, that the Patriots, they have their quarterbacks ranked May 1st, McCarthy 2nd. Good. Now, the question is, if May goes 2 and Jaden Daniels is sitting there at 3, did the Patriots have Daniels ranked ahead of Drake May? We don't know. I think a lot of people are writing this stuff about Drake May going 3, and for us to expect the Patriots to make that pick, because a lot of people believe that Daniels is going 2. A lot of people are treating that like it's a fait accompli. Mel Kiper wrote about the Vikings moving up. Says this is the team to watch to get into the top 10 for a quarterback, most likely McCarthy. But I don't think the Vikings necessarily have to move up into the top 5. They might be able to move up only a few spots, maybe in a trade with the Falcons at number 8. It's interesting I've brought the Falcons up in the past because the Falcons, they seem to be the first team on the board tonight that is likely to go defense. So if you're the Falcons, if you move back to 11 from 8, you're going to get the same kind of defensive player no matter what. And for the Vikings, if you move from 11 to 8, you're not going to have to give up as much. Now, the reason why I bring that up and what Kiper wrote is because if you're the Patriots and you want to move down and then back up, then that means you can move down to 11, get 11 and 23 plus, and then you might only have to move up from 11 to 8 to get J.J. McCarthy. You might not have to move up from 11 to 5 or 6. And if that's the case, it would cost the Patriots less with the full Monty scenario because you would move down to 11. You would only have to move up to 8. Wouldn't cost you as much, be able to keep some of those assets and still get your quarterback. All right, we'll continue. Got another super chat to get to. We have a lot more. Trust me when I tell you on this Thursday. I remind you, though, Nick Cattle Show is brought to you by Warzone Paintball and Airsoft. Warzone has 9 maps on 30-plus acres of land. We're talking multiple villages, trench warfare map. They got paintball. They've got airsoft, paintball, and airsoft. Kid versions of both. Something for every age group starting at 6+. Show up with jeans, good shoes, long sleeve shirt. They will handle the rest. It's low-key. It's casual. Check out Warzone Paintball and Airsoft in North Kingston, Rhode Island. Weather is going to be warming up. So if you enjoy paintball, if you enjoy airsoft, or you want to try it out, check out Warzone Paintball and Airsoft, North Kingston, Rhode Island. Give them a call at 401-228-6366, 401-228-6366. Tell them the Nick Cattle Show sent you. Before we move on with some more things about this draft tonight and the Patriots, and something very interesting that was written about Drake May recently that I had not really heard until I read it. Let's first go to JB Brown. $10 super chat. Thanks, JB. Again, if you want to drop your comment in, your question, you can send a super chat. What do you want the Patriots to do tonight? Are you happy with this idea? Tom Curran tweeting out earlier that we should expect the Patriots to draft May at 3. JB, absurd bag with multiple firsts, seconds, and a player. I don't know if you get multiple seconds, but if you get 11 and 23, of course, you don't count 11. I'm big on that. Don't count 11. It's part of the swap. Give me a break. So you would get 23. You would get a 2025 first-round pick. You would get, let's say, Christian Darrisaw. Maybe you can get Minnesota to move on a second-round pick in 2025. I wonder if that would be enough for people to move off of 3. It might depend on if you can move back up and get McCarthy, right? The scenario we played out yesterday. But would 23, a 25 first, a 25 second, and Christian Darrisaw, would that get you to move? Does that move the needle for you? To me, that'd be very tough to turn down. But I'll give you my top 3 scenarios a little bit later. Not going to give it up right now. JB, back to him. Pats get Joe Alt, stud. Back up from 34 to get Penix in the late 20s. I'm scared of Penix. I know the good about Penix. I know that he can sling it. I know that he has, great leadership qualities. I know that he has overcome a ton of adversity. I totally get it. He's more athletic than people give him credit for. I'm afraid of Michael Penix, though, man. The injury history, the troubles off platform, the passer rating, QBR against pressure was awful. So, he needs a very good offensive line. He needs, I think, not just one, but multiple receivers that can get down the field so he can better utilize his strengths. I mean, if you fortify the offensive line and you add a couple of outside receivers, then to me, Penix makes more sense. But that's a really, really tough needle to thread. And I do find it interesting, that Penix isn't mentioned. He wasn't mentioned in The Athletic today. He's not really mentioned by anybody right now. So it's pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. All right. So Drake May looks like he's going to be the guy at number 3. If you believe Tom Curran's tweet saying we should expect May to be the pick at 3, unless the Patriots get knocked over by a trade offer tonight. So that would be good, right? A lot of people would say either scenario would be very good. But we talk about the quarterback, and we talk about, just stick and pick. Just stick and pick. It's easy. Stick and pick the quarterback. Drake May, Jaden Daniels, or bust. I think a lot of us have said that. But I just want to make sure that we all understand that it's much more involved than just drafting the quarterback at 3, easy peasy, 1, 2, 3. There's much more involved. You need the coaching staff and front office to all believe in the guy. And if you read that article, I just read you the excerpts from The Athletic today, Chad Graff and Diana Rossini, they make the point that people at Gillette are pretty much unified in this idea of Drake May being the guy. So that is crucial. We've talked about consensus. You need people to believe in the quarterback. They might not have to all absolutely love the guy, but you need them together. And Greg Bedard wrote about this recently, and a source said to him, you got to get a consensus on this pick, because if they're broken on this thing, they're just go with Elliott like you just said. I'm telling you, that's bleeping Mitch Trubisky. The coaches didn't want Trubisky. Elliott's going to really focus on the football player, whereas a lot of these other GMs, and they aren't deserving of the title, this source throwing shots, are going to pick the guy they feel like they can win the press conference with, and all the BS, and then blame the coaches when it doesn't work, if it doesn't work. This source continued to say, quote, if they're in alignment, if the Patriots are in alignment, they got a chance. If they're not, you can forget about it. There's nothing worse than getting a quarterback in a system with some coaches who didn't want him. If it's bleeping Malik Willis, it's Kenny Pickett in Pittsburgh, it's a good thing. It's not a good thing, rather. It never works out. That's Trey Lance in San Francisco. It's just not a good idea. So the source is saying, look, don't forget, by the way, give us that thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Big day here on the podcast. Draft tonight. Can't wait. As a reminder, we're doing this podcast right now. We're back at 7 p.m. later to give you the very latest on what's been going on throughout the day. We'll go 7 to 7:30 later today. I'm going to jump on the Patreon for a community chat and talk draft with the Patreon members from 7:30 to 8 o'clock. And then at 9 o'clock, we're back here, instant reaction on what the Patriots did at number 3. So we got a lot going on today. Don't forget to give us that thumbs up. More thumbs means more eyeballs, trying to expand the brand. Don't forget as well to subscribe. Trying to hit 3,500 subscriptions. That is the next goal. Rate and review as well. So what this source is telling Bedard is, hey, look, man, if the coaching staff doesn't want the guy, it's going to be a disaster. It's going to be a freaking disaster. Because if you draft, and he brought up the examples. He brought up the examples, right? Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis, Trey Lance. The coaching staffs did not want those guys. Front office went over the coaching staff and drafted the guy anyway. And all of those quarterbacks failed at their first stop. And a major reason why is because the coaching staff didn't think they were a fit, which is why it's crucial. When we talk about quarterbacks, when we talk about fit, it's crucial to remember that Drake May, again, he fits Alex Van Pelt's scheme. That's a big part of it. So the GM, and I see where are my entertainers bringing up in the chat, you mean ownership? Yeah, sure. Ownership jumps in. They get involved in the conversation. You got to have the coaching staff aligned. And not everybody has to love the guy, but they have to believe in the guy. They have to believe that he can be a fit within their offense so they have a chance of winning and succeeding, right? If you have the coaching staff, if you've got Van Pelt and T.C. McCartney, you got those guys in the room and they go, oh man, give me a freaking break, right? There's no we can't draft Drake May. If the coaching staff, if the offensive staff is saying we can't draft Drake May, he's not going to work out in this offense. If you draft May, it's a disaster before he even steps foot here in Foxborough. Disastrous. You need the coaching staff, the front office, to believe in the guy. They need to be aligned. Look at Belichick, right? He was done with Mac Jones by 22. And that thing just went completely off the rails. You need belief in the guy, especially when you draft him third overall. Some people were concerned. I got some people saying to me, Nick, what about this Robert Kraft liking J.J. McCarthy stuff? The Robert Kraft, Tom Brady, McCarthy, Michigan link. I honestly don't put a ton into it. You guys can. I don't put a ton into it. Because, look, the owners meet these players. If Robert Kraft might love J.J. McCarthy as a person. And by all accounts, McCarthy does nothing but ace interviews. So I would not be surprised if Robert Kraft looks at McCarthy and goes, oh my God, I fell in love with that kid. The intangibles, right? We talk about the intangibles. Doesn't mean that Robert Kraft is going to walk into the room and say to Elliot Wolf, hey, we're drafting J.J. McCarthy because that kid, he absolutely won me over in that interview. We also don't know if Robert Kraft or Jonathan Kraft, if they love Drake May. We heard after the combine that the Patriots loved Drake May in the interview process. Right? We heard for about a week after the combine. We heard that Drake May's done a very good job in his interviews. I mean, ultimately, the question, too, is Wolf influenced? Mark Dominic spoke to Andrew Callahan in the Herald. And Andrew Callahan wrote, Wolf has previously stated he wants consensus among the team's chief decision makers. Dominic cautioned against that, insisting Wolf must stick to his convictions instead of finding an acceptable pick for the group. Quote, the biggest trick you have as a first-year general manager is you are really looking to please everyone. And what I mean by that is you want everybody to kind of be on the same page. And that can be a mistake. You can really mess it up because you've got the job because you're an evaluator. And sometimes you want Coach Mayo to be excited about his first pick or his first or second or third round picks. But is this the player you really think is the right player for the team? Or maybe it's your area scout that you've known for years really pushing this player or that player. And I do think, Wolf last week, he mentioned that he's not going to pick a guy if he's the only guy in the room that loves him. And I tend to agree with Elliot Wolf. I don't agree with Dominic that maybe there's a gray area. Dominic saying just don't pick a guy because you want everybody to be happy. But I also don't think you go rogue. If you go rogue, that's also a huge mistake. And I don't think it's a coincidence here that in the last 12 to 16 hours, there has been a lot of the Patriots love Drake May. Tom Curran again. If you're just joining us, if you're just jumping in, Tom Curran this morning, about 45 minutes ago, he tweeted out that we should expect the Patriots to draft Drake May at 3 unless they get bowled over by an offer. Bowled over by an offer. Tough to say. So, Tom Curran has said that. Phil Perry on his next Patriots podcast, friend of the program, love my guy Phil. He said on his podcast, it would be May over McCarthy. Chad Graff, Diana Rossini, they're saying that unless they get knocked over via a trade, it is May over McCarthy. I know that, I think it was Cameron Wolf I saw last night talking about a conversation he had with Gerard Mayo, and Gerard Mayo was pumping Drake May's tires. Now, some of this, of course, you could be serving a dual purpose because you could be selling everybody and saying, we do love Drake May. And if he's the pick at 3, now you have a bunch of stuff on record and via leaks and all of that. You have a lot on paper saying the Patriots love Drake May. So it looks like, hey, we drafted the guy we love because that's the guy we love. But the dual purpose is you're also continuing to pump those tires of May to maybe get Minnesota or the Giants or the Raiders to just go crazy and bend over backwards to make something happen. That continues. If you're wondering about Elliott Wolf, people who know him, people who have dealt with him, to a man, they say that Wolf is very confident. He's a very, very, very confident guy. Maybe at times he can come across as a little too confident, but he's very confident. I don't know Elliott Wolf. But again, the people that know Elliott Wolf, that have dealt with him, the people that have had conversations, they have relationships with him, they say he's a very confident guy and he's not going to be shaken by other people in the room. So it's very difficult drafting a quarterback at 3. You got to get it right. It's tough to get it right. You need the consensus. You need the first-time GM to be ready and willing to pull the trigger. You need that quarterback to be a scheme fit. We just went through that with Drake May. And we have to realize, we have to embrace this idea that everybody has risks. I'm not telling you that Drake May is a home run. I wouldn't tell you any quarterback in this draft is a home run. There are no, to me, Andrew Lucks, for example. There's inherent risk with every guy that you pick at that position in this draft. Everyone has risks. So it's not necessarily easy to draft a quarterback at 3, even though we tend to try to fall in love with this idea of just, hey, stick and pick. It's easy. Pick the guy. Don't overthink this. You need to check all those boxes. You need the consensus. People have to at least believe in the guy in that room. You need the GM to be confident and to make the right evaluation. You need that quarterback to fit the scheme. You have to understand that there is going to be risk with it. All right, let's jump to a super chat. Don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, and review. Andy jumps in, $10 super chat. Thanks, Andy. What about taking the bag, accepting that this is a multi-year process and nailing down legit offensive tackle and wide receiver weapons, then sign Dak next year and draft a quarterback? Keep up the great work. Thank you, Andy. Appreciate the kind words. I do think an interesting, and look, this will pretty much be rendered useless after tonight if the Patriots do draft a quarterback, which pretty much everybody at this point is expecting to happen. But, there are some interesting names when it comes to quarterbacks and free agency next year. Now, of course, those quarterbacks, they have to get to free agency. We get into this conversation all the time. We did this with some of the wide receivers, right? We do this all the time with, this guy's available next year. That guy's available next year. Well, what happens? What happens if that guy ends up signing an extension before next offseason? Now, all of a sudden, if you were banking on a couple of free agent quarterbacks to be out there, you're screwed because those guys signed. You can't get them. I would also remind people it's very unusual. It's not impossible, but it's very unusual that veteran quarterbacks will reach free agency. Now, Kirk Cousins, that guy is the man. You want to talk about businessman? That guy is the ultimate player of the market. And Cousins has no issue walking into free agency. He's done it multiple times now. And talk about the bag, he's gotten the bag. But when you look at quarterbacks, teams keep quarterbacks, man. The Giants kept Daniel Jones because they said, we don't know if we can get somebody better. Even if you have an average quarterback, it's very difficult to go out there and get somebody better. There are so many misses at the position. So, yeah, right now, Dak Prescott is set to be a free agent, as Andy mentions. Jared Goff is also out there to be a free agent. There are others, many others. Jordan Love, don't think he signed yet. So, there's a number of guys. Trevor Lawrence, I think his option will be picked up. Tua, all the talk about Tua is that he's going to get a big fat deal. But you're looking at a number of guys. Even Justin Fields, if you wanted to take a flyer on him, not having to give up a pick. So, yeah, there's 2 or 3, maybe 4 quarterbacks that right now stand to be free agents next offseason. But the likelihood of them getting to free agency, Andy, I think is slim to none, and Slim likely walked out the door. You just don't see it happen. You just do not see it happen very often. Appreciate the super chat, my man. And again, the kind words. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to rate and review this podcast. Every little bit helps. All right. Speaking of Drake May, and I'll get to my list of scenarios in priority for tonight. What I want to see the Patriots do. List of scenarios, okay? But before we get to that, I read something the other day that jumped out at me because I hadn't seen it before. Drake May was hurt last year. How many of you saw this? Did you see anything about Drake May being injured last year? Because Tom Pelissero, in his column for the NFL Network at NFL.com, he spoke to executives and scouts. And there was one NFC executive that said, quote, May's best receiver was a transfer who was ineligible for part of the season. We've talked about that, Tez Walker. Aside from that, his receiving core was just a ragtag group, and the kids playing hurt a lot of the season and didn't make that known. I read that. I said, wait a minute. Drake May was hurt a lot of last year. And this is not somebody who's randomly leaking this stuff. It's not somebody who's close to May. This is an NFC executive speaking to Tom Pelissero. Wait a minute. He was hurt most of last year? Pelissero followed that up. He wrote, sources say May battled an ankle injury during last season. He also suffered an AC sprain in his left non-throwing shoulder in November. So wait a minute. I haven't heard anybody talk about this. Now, maybe I missed it. I can't catch everything. But have any of you heard anything about Drake May dealing with not one but two injuries last year for most of the year? I had not heard any of this. So he had an ankle injury. He had an ankle injury and he had an AC sprain. According to Tom Pelissero, who spoke to sources, and again, this NFC executive who's done the work on him said he was hurt a lot of the season and didn't make that known. A quarterback's coach in the AFC talking to Pelissero said, quote, May was kind of banged up during the year, so I don't know how much the injuries played a part. I saw him get trucked a couple of times. I know he had an ankle injury. He did not use that as an excuse. So an NFC executive, a quarterback's coach, multiple other sources say that May was playing injured last year. Ankle injury in the left AC joint. News to me. News to me. I didn't hear anything of that sort. And again, I know people will sit there and they'll say, well, these are excuses. It wasn't mentioned during the season. It wasn't mentioned during the combine. It wasn't mentioned until Tom Pelissero mentioned it. And I see Val saying May propaganda. Again, this is not coming from just, May's sources, Val. This is coming from an NFC executive. It's coming from an AFC quarterbacks coach. It's coming from multiple other sources. And nobody's saying that's why he wasn't as good in 2023. We don't have to make that leap. I'm not even looking at it in regards to his 2023 because I think there are other reasons. But, you could wonder. Ankle injury, AC joint injury, why is he stepping in? How does that impact his stepping into throws? How does that impact his footwork? But I more look at it as a toughness thing because neither the NFC executive or the AFC quarterbacks coach is saying he didn't play as well in 2023 because of those injuries. I look at it from the toughness quotient. And that's why I said back near the beginning of this podcast, stick a pin in the idea that Gerard Mayo, according to The Athletic, loved Drake May's toughness. And it's something that Mayo has talked about. He wants toughness. He wants character. He wants leadership from his quarterback. And so an example of May's toughness is that he continued to play through two injuries. Again, nobody is saying that's why he wasn't good last year or as good as he was in 2022. Nobody's saying that. I see people jumping and going, how convenient now he has an injury. How convenient. It's they're not trying to excuse make. They're just saying the kid had a couple of injuries last year and he played through them. They're not saying, oh, well, he would have been much better if he wasn't injured, if he wasn't hurt, if he wasn't doing this, he wasn't. So I don't really, sit there and go, ooh, and it hasn't been leaked a ton, has it? Pelocero's the only guy that's had it. I haven't heard it anywhere else. If this was something that Drake May's camp was trying to get out feverishly, and by the way, why would Drake May try to feverishly leak this stuff when pretty much universally people are saying, and they might be wrong, but universally he's expected to go in the top 3 of this draft? Why would he be leaking stuff? Why? Would make no sense. I mean, he's pretty confident he's going in the top 5. His agents, trust me, by now know he's going to go in the top 5. That's the case. And if they were going to leak it, if you were trying to make excuses for Drake May, this would be all over the place. This would be all over the joint. And I haven't seen it all over the place. You know how Jaden Daniels, his camp, leaking stuff about the Commanders and playing in the Northeast? That's the stuff. When you see that across the board in a lot of other places, that's Jaden Daniels' camp doing work to try to get him to Vegas or to Minnesota. At least in my eyes. Drygo, hopefully I pronounced that correctly. My dream scenario is your full Monty trade and then get McCarthy and also a first-round wide receiver. Drafting the North Carolina quarterback is a mistake. His floor is too low, in my honest opinion. Look, his floor is dangerous. His floor is low. There's no doubt. I mean, there's this vision that you can kind of put together of a guy really struggling, never develops his footwork, never develops his mechanics, is all kind of scattershot in the pocket, inaccurate, and he doesn't work out. But there's the potential as well. Like, I think McCarthy, McCarthy also has risk. Everybody has risk. McCarthy is inaccurate. McCarthy, talk about mechanics, he's going to take this wide-ass stride when he throws the football down the field. He's much, much better in a clean pocket. He was playing behind one of the best offensive lines in college football last year. How is his accuracy, which is already questionable in certain situations, how is that accuracy impacted if he doesn't have a fantastic offensive line allowing him to step into those throws, allowing that wide stride? He also lacks touch. He throws a lot of 99-mile-an-hour fastballs, right? So we can play this game tit for tat, and we've done it this entire time. Everybody has risk. You could see Drake May fail. I could say, well, J.J. McCarthy wasn't asked to always carry his team in Michigan, and, he had a great offensive line and a great run game, and he had a fantastic coach, one of the best coaches, as we know, in Jim Harbaugh, who was making sure, taking care of him. Jim Harbaugh, when he had Andrew Luck, what'd he do? Andrew Luck aired it out at Stanford. So what does that mean? I don't know. To me, McCarthy is a really tough projection. Jim Harbaugh, he had Andrew Luck at Stanford, and he let Luck throw the football a ton because he knew what he had in Andrew Luck. He didn't do the same thing with J.J. McCarthy. So that's a question. Why did he not do that? Why did they not rely on McCarthy that, as much as some of these other guys? So there's questions with everybody. I mean, there's questions with everyone. You don't know what you're going to get. Instead of looking at floor, I look at ceiling. You either trust the coaching staff or you don't. And I trust this coaching staff. Alex Van Pelt is a very highly regarded quarterbacks coach, somebody who's worked with all sorts of different quarterbacks. So, T.C. McCartney is very well thought of. Ben McAdoo has been mentioned as a quarterback whisperer with his evaluations. It's up to the coaching staff, man. Like, it's up to those guys to develop the quarterback that they draft. And that goes for anybody. That goes for Jaden Daniels, teaching him to get out of bounds, to get out of harm's way, teaching him to not always tuck and run as much as he does. You know, he only threw the football like 16 times off of his scrambles last year. He doesn't like throwing on the run. All of these guys need at least some development. But here's the thing. McCarthy and May, I feel better about them needing development because they're 21. Daniels and Penix, those guys, you're talking 23, going to be 24. So, if you're drafting third, I look at ceiling, Drago. I get the concerns. I do. I'm not going to sit here and tell you there's no concerns about May. Of course there are. But I look at the ceiling. Third pick in the draft. Go big or go home. Vitalix, $5 super chat. Thank you, Vitalix. It's draft day. It's time. Little Bruce Buffer there. It's time. I'm not going to stand up and jump. Remember when Buffer blew his ACL out when he tried to do the little 180 thing in the middle of the octagon for you MMA fans? I'm a big MMA guy, big UFC guy. Thanks, Vitalix, for the super chat. I appreciate you. JB Brown is back, $5 super chat. Expert said Mac Jones' floor was high. They, ... were incorrect. No one knows. And that's the point. Look, I'm no expert, obviously. If I was an expert, I'd be in the NFL. I'd be grading these quarterbacks. I'd be drafting guys and hitting home runs every day of the week. The fact is, nobody knows. And I've said that from the beginning of this thing. I tell you who I like. I tell you who I love. I tell you who I'm more scared of. Nobody knows. Spencer Rattler could be drafted in the third round, and all of a sudden the guy that was the number one recruit out of high school with a great arm, good athleticism. Yes, he's smaller, but all of a sudden the guy pops. He becomes the guy that they thought they were getting at Oklahoma. No one knows. Caleb Williams. Risk with Caleb Williams. High-end talent, high-end traits, but he gambles a lot, turns the football over a ton. So, does he get to the NFL and he tries to do too much and he tries to squeeze it into windows and those throws, end up being turnovers? I mean, let's not forget, Patrick Mahomes went 10th in the draft. There were a lot of people at the time writing about Mahomes and saying how dangerous of a prospect he was, that he played out of control, that he tried to do too much. He tried to get too cute. He turned the ball over, et cetera, et cetera. Tom Brady was picked in the 6th round. I mean, you just don't know. You trust the GM, you trust the coaching staff, and you say, hopefully you have the right people in that building to develop the young man, and he hits that ceiling. He hits that potential. Because if Drake May reaches his ceiling, if he's the guy, top 8 quarterback in the league. Ken Weber jumps in, $10 super chat. Thank you, Ken. May has been, quote-unquote, tested through adversity and can carry a team. That's a fact. McCarthy has not. In fact, JJ's loss at Michigan was a result of having to pass all game, unable to rely on the run game. Very hard projection. Again, McCarthy, man, they ran the football a ton. I watched that game against Penn State. They ran the ball 32 straight times. And, it's not to say that they wouldn't be able to beat Penn State if McCarthy had to throw the ball more. It just shows you how good Michigan was, right? How good that offensive line was, how good Blake Corum was and Edwards. They had 2 really good running backs. Roman Wilson is a good, not great, but a good, some would say really good receiver. I like him. But they had a great offensive line, a great run game, and they had one of the best coaches in college football and one of the best coaches in football, period, who nurtured him and helped him. And again, they didn't treat McCarthy like Andrew Luck, which I think tells us at least a certain amount as far as what McCarthy is ready for now. Doesn't mean he can't develop. He's still young. He just turned 21 in January, for the love of God. I'm not writing McCarthy off. I've said that. I'm not writing McCarthy off. I think he's a first-round talent. I think he could end up being a good NFL quarterback. I'm not writing the young man off. I don't completely write off any quarterback in the top 6 or 7 because, again, you just never know. But if you're asking me May McCarthy, May's ceiling to me is much higher because of the traits that he has, the skill set that he has. Just one man's opinion. I might know ish, right? I might not know ish. So it is interesting when you look at Drake May. How do you grade 2023? Coordinator scheme and all that stuff. All right, so here's my list of scenarios in priority, okay? before I bid you adieu the first time today, again, we are back tonight at 7 o'clock. We'll do a live draft preview with all sorts of, draft rumors that come out from now until then. We'll look at some other things in the draft. It'll be Patriots, a good amount of Patriots, but we'll mix it up. We'll talk NFL draft. We'll just have some fun. It'll be like a draft chat, live draft preview from 7 to 7:30 tonight. So like and subscribe. Don't forget to do that. It means an awful lot to the program. That's how we continue to grow like we have because of all of you. So like, subscribe, rate, and review. So here are my scenarios, okay? The number one thing, and I know I've thrown a bunch of different hypotheticals and ideas out there. That's what we do, right? We had how many? 3 months? We had 3 freaking months, 3.5 months to talk about this draft and to talk about this third pick. We, we throw a lot of stuff out there as, scenarios, possibilities. Do you like this? Do you like that? I will stand by what I've said from the beginning. And I still feel this way, even though some scenarios are tough to turn down. I would still like to see the Patriots stick and pick at 3 and pick May or Daniels, whichever guy is there. Because I think if both of those guys, if they can develop and they reach their potential, and again, there's less development from Daniels because he's older, which is why I lean May over Daniels. I've said that for the last month. But if you have a quarterback that has top 8 potential, you have to take that quarterback. You cannot pass up that opportunity. Quarterback is the most important position in all of sports in this country. It is pivotal. You have to get it right. And if you have somebody who has that potential to be a top 8 guy in the league, top 5 guy in the league, number one priority is to get that guy. Don't screw around. You draft him. That's my number one. Number 2, if you don't love the guy, if you don't believe that guy has top 8 ability, the full Monty. We've talked about it. Big fan of the full Monty. If you don't love the guy at number 3, move down and then move back up. Try to get to the top 8 again, from 11 into the top 8. And even if you don't land a quarterback, you at least get one of the best tackles in the draft and you start there. So if you don't love the quarterbacks, the full Monty to me is option number 2. Option number 3 is you move the third pick to get the bag. You don't love the guy necessarily. You don't think it's a huge mistake by not picking him at 3. The bag is a very good scenario. The deal with Minnesota that I threw out there yesterday, maybe you get them to move Darisaw to you, couple of first-round picks, an additional pick, you load up. And then if you load up in the right way, McCarthy and Penix, to me, look better than they look right now. So that's my 3 right there. That's how I would order them in priority. After all of this talk, number 1 to me is stick and pick, May or Daniels. May over Daniels. Number 2 is the full Monty. Number 3 is the bag. I don't want J.J. McCarthy at 3. I think it would be a mistake to draft McCarthy at 3. I don't think he has the ceiling that justifies using a top 3 pick on him. If you get closer to 10, then we can have that conversation. But I do not want McCarthy to be the third pick. If you're sitting there and you've got one of Daniels, May, McCarthy, 2 of those 3 guys are going to be sitting there for you. I am not taking McCarthy over Daniels. I'm not taking McCarthy over Drake May. To me, it's May, Daniels, and McCarthy. That's how I rank these top 3 guys, these choices. Caleb Williams, we know he's going to be off the board. One of the worst case scenarios, multiple trades down. Please don't do it. Please, Elliott, don't do this. I don't want to start the night at number 3 and end up in the middle of the first round. Don't do it. Don't go crazy. I know Elliott Wolf said, the more picks, the better. Don't do it. Do not be trading down multiple times. I'll lose my freaking mind. I will lose it. And honestly, I would rather stay away from Penix. Again, that's fluid because it depends on what else they do and if they are better built for somebody like Penix, but I would rather stay away from Penix tonight. I've got just big concerns about him and this offense and his injury history. I've got concerns. So that's what I'm looking at. Stick and pick Drake May, I'll be thrilled. Stick and pick Jaden Daniels, I'll be happy. If they don't love those guys, they get the full Monty done. Good job. They get the bag. They build this thing. Good job. Don't want McCarthy at 3. Don't want multiple trades down. And I'd rather stay away from Penix. So here's what we're doing. Back tonight at 7 o'clock. Draft preview. We'll look around the league, the latest hot rumors, what's out there. We'll have some fun. 7 to 7:30. If you are a Patreon member, 7:30 to 8 o'clock. Draft chat tonight. Community chat. Patreon.com/Nick Cattles. $5 a month, $1.25 a week. Not too shabby. Exclusive content. And by the way, we loaded up. We had 3 exclusive Patreon podcasts this week, all having to do with the draft and how, the wide receiver market can play into it, all of those things. So 7:30 to 8 o'clock, we'll do the chat on the Patreon. And then we're back here at 9 o'clock, okay? So we're back here at 7, 30-minute preview. Then we're back here at 9 o'clock for reaction to what happens tonight. See you at 7 o'clock. Everybody have fun with this. It's a big night. We've been looking forward to it. We're all nervous. They can screw this up royally. Hopefully they don't. Hopefully they hit a home run. And we're talking about the future of this franchise for the next 10 to 15 years. That's my hope. So, again, back here at 7 o'clock. I will see you then. This has been the Nick Cattle Show. I appreciate you.